Okay, I'm demonstrating how to use the offset function to create a dynamic named range so that your charts will automatically adjust whenever, in this case, a person's birthday or their life expectancy changes. So right now, I just have a basic line chart, and I have graphed age on the horizontal axis, income on the vertical axis, but because I want my chart to be dynamic and allow for adjusting birthdays and adjusting ages, I actually highlighted all the way through row 100 when I graphed my chart. And as you can see, my person only lives till row 49, where they pass away at the age of 76. On the chart, that doesn't look good. Uh, Income is rising through age 76, at which point they pass away and income drops to zero. So this line just drops all the way down to zero and stays on the graph at zero, but there are no ages displayed. And it just simply doesn't look good. Now, I'm not graphing, I mean, I know a person probably wouldn't generate income through age 76. Eventually, they would retire and start taking money out of their 401k. That's not the purpose of this video. I'm just trying to show you how to generate a dynamic named range with the offset function. So right now, if I click on my graph and I select my data and I look at the edit for the range where my series is located for the income, it's just highlighting rows B2 through B100 because that's what I told it to do. And for the horizontal category, it's highlighting rows or cells A2 through A100. But I'm about to change that. I'm going to change those A2s to A100 to be a named range based on the offset function. So let's get started. Now I could build this formula directly into a named range under the name manager, but if I build them that way, I can't easily see errors. I can't easily debug my formula if it's not working. So I like to create them in a cell in the spreadsheet, and that way I can tell if they're working, figure out what's wrong if they're not working, and then I copy and paste it into the name manager. So for right now, the first one I want to build is a named range for the age with the offset function. So the offset function says choose a starting point. That's what it calls the reference. I'm going to make that A2. That is the first age in my age column. And then the rows and columns that follow represent how far above or below do I want it to move from A2. That's the rows. And then how far to the left or right do I want it to move from A2. I want it to go to A2 and stay there. And that's where I want it to begin collecting data that represents my ages. So I'm just going to put don't move any rows and don't move any columns. Now it wants to know how much data do I want to collect? How many rows? That's what the height is. How many rows of data from the starting point, age 29, do I want it to collect? Well, this is what becomes dynamic. If I change this birthday and leave the life expectancy at 76, so if I make someone who's 50 years old right now, I only need to collect 26 rows of data. But if they're 40 years old, I need to collect 36 rows of data. The way to tell the offset function to do this and be dynamic about it is to use the count function. So I'm going to say go to A2 through A100, the same range that I had originally highlighted when I built my chart, but I need to make this an absolute reference. So I'm doing that. So I'm going to say go to that range and just count how many numbers there are in that range. That's what the count function does. It counts how many numbers there are. It doesn't count everything, but it just so happens that all that's in A2 to A100 is numbers. So I'm going to say count those and then pull a range that is that many rows high, and I only need it to be 1 column wide. So I know it worked for 2 reasons. One, it gave me a number, and 2, the number corresponds to the number that is on the same row of the range that I've chosen. Like if I put my offset function, actually I need to do one thing I messed up, and I do this every time, so it's no big deal. I need to make this A2 right here an absolute reference. Oops, I'm using my laptop and it doesn't do the F4 quite right, which is annoying. So I'm just typing it in. So now I've made my A2 an absolute reference. Everything in here should be an absolute reference. Now I'm just going to drag it down a few rows. It should adjust and pull the number that is on the same row in column A. So if it does that, I know I've created my offset function properly. And on this one, what I'm going to do now is actually highlight in the formula, I think it's called the formula bar. I'm going to highlight the formula and copy it with Control C and hit Escape to get out of the formula bar. And now I'm going to go to the formulas name manager and I'm going to create a new name. This one I'm going to call the age axis. And I am going to, in the refers to section, just Control V, paste that function and say OK. And just close that. Now I want to create a second offset function to represent the income. And it will work exactly the same way as the first offset function. As a matter of fact, I could actually just copy this offset function. So why don't I do that? It's already stored in my clipboard. So I'm just going to paste it here. And I'm just going to change my A's to B's because now I want it to go to the very first income in B2, and I want it to count all the incomes in range B2 to B100 and pull a range that is this many cells high and 1 column wide. When I press enter, it should tell me 48,620 because my cursor is on row 6. I'm editing the formula in row 6. And so it should pull the value from the income column that is the same value, or the value that's from row 6. So now I'm just going to press enter. And again, these are absolute references. So when I drag this formula around, it should pull the number on the same row as where I have moved the formula. Now I'm going to copy this formula and escape to get out of the editing mode, go to my name manager, add a new name. I'll call this income axis. And where it says refers to, I'm just going to highlight that and then Control V to paste that equation over the section I just highlighted. And if I move my cursor so y'all can see everything, you can see it got rid of what was there before and it just put the offset function. Everything is absolute reference, so that's good. So I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to close the name manager. At this point, I actually don't need these two formulas. I could delete them and everything will be fine. Now I need to pop those named ranges onto my graph. So I'm going to click anywhere on my graph, right click, and choose select data. And then I'm going to click on income and I'm going to edit it. And where it says series name, I hope y'all can see this. I can't make it bigger. Where it says series values, it starts with equal sheet 1 exclamation point. I want to delete everything after the exclamation point. And then here I'm going to type in income axis. And I'm going to say OK. And at the horizontal category axis labels, I'm going to edit those and everything after the exclamation point, I'm going to delete, and I'm going to type in age axis. And I'm going to say, okay. And now I have a dynamic range. So if I change the life expectancy to, I'm going to make it, let's say 40. So you can see that it's going to not display anything after age 40. And you can see that now my graph only displays ages 29 through 40. All right, hopefully this helps.